Congratulations on the show, and it's just like it must be surreal to be sitting next to each other, sort of being the same character. I'm going to start with you, Brittany. What was it like, sort of playing a real life character as opposed to a fictional character? And did you know much about each other, about Mandy really, and her work?
I did know about Mandy and I had listened to her podcast. And so I was already very familiar with the case. It was something that I felt really drawn to figure out when I was listening to. And so then when I was approached to perhaps play her, it was such a huge honor. And I felt like it was, a of a big importance. But I think it was my first time playing a real person, and it was definitely my first time playing a real person that was alive. And so that was really inspiring and interesting because I got to actually ask Mandy questions in real time. I got to text her, things like that. And it was so helpful and useful as creating a character that I could draw from her real life experiences and her thought process.
Mandy, like Brittany, I was very much aware of your podcast as well. So I was completely
Oh.
gripped by it. And so when I knew this was being made, I was very excited to talk to you. Um,
Oh.
what were the things that you worked with Brittany on getting just right on your behalf? And was it how did it feel really having someone play you?
I really need a better word than surreal because I keep saying it over and over, but I think that that's the only word that I can come up with. It was incredibly surreal and an honor, really, to see such an amazing actor playing me in such a beautiful, perfect way. I always say she's a glow up version of me.
Yeah.
You are. You're a glow up. You're my Hollywood version. No, it's the biggest compliment in the world. And I didn't really have to coach her on much. She knew so much of the story. She's not kidding. Um, like you asked really good questions about like my relationship with Sandy and things like that. But like for the most part, you in it, and she also studied my book like more than anybody I've ever met. You pointed out details in my book that I forgot I mentioned. I'm not kidding.
I loved that book. I mean, I read it twice.
So nice.
Well, I had to.
So nice. But
It's so
like
good.
she really, really did so much of the work and she knew the whole story. So I didn't have to do that much. And we relate on a lot of things. Like I was like, I'm an anxious person. I'm very I feel awkward in a lot of the situations that I'm in. So just lean into that.
I was like, no problem. I got that part.
Yeah. Awkward and a little anxious. So we just things like that. And but like I said, she did most of the heavy lifting with like reading my book, listening to my entire podcast. And she did an amazing job. I didn't have to coach her. She was
Brittany, is there like a responsibility that comes with playing a real life character, not just a real life character, but such a serious theme, really, because it's people's lives. This isn't just some fictional sort of, made up story. Is there a responsibility that you feel like you don't want to be part of something that's salacious, but this is the tone here is fantastic. They got it just right. Was that important for you?
Definitely. I mean, that was a huge part of my conversation with Erin Lee Carr and Michael T. Fuller when I met them was what is this tone going to be and who is going to be the person or who are going to be the people that have the biggest voices in this. And it was really important them to give voices to the voiceless in this in terms of like Maggie and Paul and all these people that seemed like headlines, but really there was a full character that needed to be heard from in this story. And I knew going into it that Mandy's character, and if I got the opportunity to play Mandy, was such an important part of the story because she really did stand up to this, huge dynasty, but also the patriarchy in so many ways of like a system that has been over our heads for so long. And to have the forthright knowing that you have to do this regardless of how hard it is so brave and so strong. I'm not sure if I would do it. So I was really inspired to try to find a way that I could play that.
and you did a great job.
Mandy, I know that I've read so many articles about you, one including one in the Guardian in the UK, that sort of named you as being one of the people who finally got this exposed. And how do you feel about that when people sort of talk like that about you? Is that unnerving, or do you feel proud?
That's a great question, and nobody has really asked me that, so thank you. But because for years it was unnerving. For years it felt like a target was on my back. I will never forget listening to one of Alex Murdaugh's phone calls with his son, and they mentioned my name between them, and I was like, oh my gosh, like for years it felt like there was a target on my back, and it felt like when I was complimented for being the one person to stand up to the system, it always felt like it was all exposing me in the same way of like, oh, that's actually scary, and maybe I did go too far with this. But now, as I've entered this period of working on the show, I've learned to really embrace it and be extremely proud of the work that I did, and not be afraid of that, having that title of being the girl to stand up to the system, of just embracing that and like, yeah, don't mess with me.
Yeah.
I'm in that. I'm there now.
Brittany, have you become very good friends with Mandy now, having played her? Is that someone that you kind of look up to now?
Oh, I've looked up to her before, but now even more so because I just really learned a lot from Mandy of how to be so yourself in terms of like, she just is a unique person and does everything like her own way, and shed so much like light to a whole community of people that it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, journalism in general is sort of like so serious, and there's these archetypes that are sort of like upheld that you have to be a certain way. And I just love that Mandy leads everything with kindness and does everything the right way. And so I do really look up to her. And also we have a blast together. And so that was really fun because like the research was going to dinner and having margaritas, which is great.
Another question for you, Brittany, and that's probably my last one. What do you feel? What do you think people should be taking out of this series, rather than it being, as I say, not salacious, rather more sort of empowering to the women involved in this? What do you hope people will take out from this?
I think there's a lot of stories about, how a woman stands up to, adversity, and she shocks the system by undoing it in a lot of ways, but you don't really see it in this sort of way where like it's an unconventional way of doing things. She had to go up against so much. And I hope that people understand that this was actually what really happened. Mandy is a real person. This isn't an archetype that was thrown into a TV show because they needed some sort of like David and Goliath story where David slays, Goliath. Like this has actually really happened. And so I think that for young girls is so inspiring to be able to see. And there's a lot of truth and light to this story, even though there's a lot of darkness. And I think people can really learn a lot from this, as we were saying, cautionary tale.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, both, and congratulations again. Fantastic show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!